Today is Friday, September 22nd, and we're going to go around the bases with our MLB insider at the New York Post, Jon Heyman. Jon, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well. We're going to start off with our top story as always, but this one's going to be about Pete Alonso again. Weird situation here, feels like. Again, I can't really get a grasp of what the Mets are going to do with Pete Alonso. There's so many rumors, obviously, from the trade deadline. Were they going to trade him? There's rumors the Brewers were involved in those discussions. And then you saw Pete Alonso again speak this week and reiterate, I love being a Met. New York is my home. I want to be here. But, Jon, there's always that question of, are the Mets going to lock up Pete Alonso, their slugger, to a long-term deal, or with their new president of baseball operations, David Stearns, are they going to decide to ultimately trade him in the offseason to get as much assets and continue this rebuild?
Well, I certainly believe that they are going to try to lock him up. I heard from somebody with the Mets that Pete is a priority, but obviously David Stearns has not started yet. He presumably, after the season ends and his contract is all settled and ready to go, we will start to know more about what their intentions are. The issue for me is that as a trade piece, with a year to go, there aren't going to be a lot of teams that are going to be willing to give up big time prospects unless they're able to lock him up themselves, which probably is not happening. If the Mets haven't been able to do it to this point, and they obviously have the money to do it, and we're now only a year away from free agency, he probably doesn't mind the idea of being a free agent, which you cannot blame him. He's now got 45 home runs. Again, he's clearly one of the best sluggers, if not the best, in Major League Baseball. And certainly beyond all that, a good clubhouse influence, improves in the field, certainly worth keeping. The Mets have really not gotten a bona fide number 5 hitter to bat behind him, so he's done this without that. But it just shows you how difficult it is to get these types of players. And so I do believe that they will make a big effort to keep him. And if they do trade him, I don't think they can expect to get a ton back. I would say sign him, or if you don't sign him, do what the Yankees did with Aaron Judge, play it out, and then hope for the best in the next offseason.
Well, it's interesting, Jon, because you think about Alonso, 45 home runs, like you said, one of the best sluggers in baseball. Is he being hampered and hurt in this market because of the way baseball values first baseman, because they're not getting those huge contracts? And on the flip side, is Alonso maybe overplaying his hand, thinking I'm one of the best sluggers, like a Aaron Judge, and I should be paid so?
Yeah, to this point, I would not say that he's overplayed his hand. He's played it very well and helped himself by hitting the 45 home runs this year. So he's in a great position. Had he signed the deal last winter when they talked about a contract, it would have been less than he's going to be able to get now. So I don't think he's overplayed his hand. Yeah, first base, it's been interesting. I mean, obviously, there were those huge deals. The Prince Fielder deal certainly did not work out to me in my mind. We've got the Miguel Cabrera, and I know he's getting all these certainly accolades for an incredible career, but added, what was it, 240 million or 320 million? I can't even remember what it was now. At that time, that didn't work. The Pujols deal, that helped the Angels get their TV deal, but as a contract, as a baseball contract, that really didn't work either. So, I think there was an overcorrection. And what happened was some really good first basemen in their prime, not guys who were already well into their 30s like Cabrera and Pujols, signed deals that I think were not spectacular. I mean, Freddie Freeman, he's a bargain. Paul Goldschmidt, he's been a bargain twice, right? So those contracts are in the market, and they probably will hinder exactly what Alonso can get. That said, we've all said what we think of Alonso. He's in New York. I do believe him when he says he loves it. I do think he'll get more, even though I think Goldschmidt and certainly Freeman are better all-around players. They've won MVPs.
Look at Matt Olson.
Yeah, and Matt Olson was 2 years away from free agency. Right. He's going from the A's to the Braves, his hometown team. I get that contract. I understand that one. But looking back on the contracts, I mean, even at the time, the Freeman contract looked like a bargain for the Dodgers. And certainly the Goldschmidt deal, that he was going to St. Louis. Some guys love to be in St. Louis, and he loved the idea. It was a year to go. To me, that was a pretty good contract from a team standpoint as well. So might hinder Alonso to some degree, but, that's been a few years now with Goldschmidt. Alonso is one of the only guys consistently hitting 40 home runs at the big league level. he's going to do better. I mean, we've said in the past, we think it's probably going to have to begin with a 2 to get it signed. So the 125 of Goldschmidt, the 162 of Freeman,
Right.
probably not getting it done, but they are in the market and they are worth noting, certainly if you're the team.
Yeah, just to wrap all this up, I mean, you bring up great points though about those previous contracts in a Pujols and a Cabrera. Those contracts have aged horribly in baseball, and like you said,
Right.
there seems to be a market correction there. So that
Overcorrection. I think it was an
overcorrection,
overcorrection. There needed to be a correction because
right?
obviously Cabrera, Pujols. I mean, you get it. I got Pujols to a degree because the huge name. They were getting a TV deal. You know, I get it to a degree. It was over at the time. It was certainly the Cabrera one has looked bad, even though we're now celebrating, and understandably, he's the first ballot Hall of Famer, but contract was not good. Prince Fielder got hurt, and that was over anyway. That was way over contract. So it was an overcorrection. So I think he's going to be somewhere in the middle,
Okay.
below the big ones that we've seen in the past with Pujols and Cabrera and Fielder, but above the Freeman and the Goldschmidt deals.
Yeah, and it's again Goldschmidt and Freeman MVPs. Like, I mean, even Matt
Right.
Olson looks like the leading MVP candidate with Acuna. Like, it's interesting how that first base market, those guys are so valuable, and they're
Yeah.
MVPs legitimately, but they're not being paid as like one of those top guys. It's a really fascinating situation. I can't wait to see how it develops this offseason, what the Mets ultimately decide to do, or they're going to play it out like you said. But John, let's go to our next topic here. Sticking somewhat with the Mets here, but we're going to go to the Brewers. Craig Counsell due to be a free agent this offseason after the Brewers going their playoff run, obviously. What's the deal with Craig Counsell? Are we going to see him ultimately test the free agent market, or could you see him return with the Brewers this upcoming season?
Yeah, both. I mean, he's testing the free agent market. He's one of the most memorable managerial free agents. We always have openings, right? And then we look around, who's a candidate? Who's a candidate? This is the opposite. We now have a terrific manager, one of the best in baseball, who is going to be a free agent. Contract is up. He deferred the discussion in spring. And I do think, as you said, or implied, suggested, the Brewers have an excellent chance to keep him. I did write about this today in the Post because we presumably think that with the Mets now with David Stearns, and maybe even if they didn't have David Stearns, but certainly with David Stearns, who worked with Counsell for 7 years, makes sense that they'll make a play at least for Counsell and see what they can do. And they certainly have the wherewithal to do it and to pay him what he feels like he should be making, which I get. I understand. The top of the market is, we believe, $6 million that Bruce Bochy now makes. And certainly we know that Joe Torre made $8 million at one time. To me, that's a different deal. Joe Torre won 4 World Series. Put that aside. $6 million is the top of the market. He makes $3.5 million, and I get it. I mean, he was a strong union guy as a player. He wants to be near the top of the market, if not at the top of the market. So I understand. Ultimately, we got to think that the Brewers are probably the big favorite in this. He's from Milwaukee. Not that he lives in Milwaukee. I mean, most managers don't live in the town where they're managing, right? Aaron Boone is, I believe, a Californian. We know Buck Showalter's got a home in Dallas, right? So I couldn't name. There might be 1 or 2 others that live in the town where they're actually the manager, but Counsell lives there. His 2 kids, 2 of his kids are in high school there. The other 2 are playing big town baseball, University of Michigan and Minnesota. We'd heard that he might take a year off for family reasons. So we know family's important. I don't believe he's taking a year off. He's going to manage next year. He's going to be a free agent. He's going to manage for one of these teams. Certainly the Brewers are the favorite, but you certainly can understand with the Mets, with David Stearns coming in. We know that Steve Cohen's always looking to have the best. Not that Buck Showalter's done a bad job. I think he's been pretty good. I don't blame him at all for this. He was 4th time manager of the year last year. But I think if you can get Counsell, you've got Stearns coming in, it makes sense for the Mets to give it a shot if they can. Like I said, and you implied, Brewers got to be favored here. He's a Milwaukeean, grew up there. His dad worked for the Brewers. It's a long shot, but it's an interesting thing to follow.
Yeah, it will be an interesting thing to follow. And again, with the Mets and Buck, it's a tough situation. Obviously, again, another story came out this week about the Mets and the Tommy Pham criticizing the players and how hard they work. And you heard stories about, you heard about the quotes about Buck and how he handled that. It's a tough situation this year. I think Buck got a bad hand. I don't think it's on him this year, to be honest with you.
No, and I would say this, it's been less of a soap opera than we've seen in San Diego, certainly with the White Sox. probably St. Louis. There's always going to be something that comes out when a team underachieves or doesn't meet expectations. And obviously this team had the highest payroll in baseball history, at least to start the year, and it's going to end up with a losing record. I give Buck credit for the team is playing hard. I mean, I can't speak to whether they're working harder than anybody. It's hard for me to judge that, but they are playing hard and they're playing fairly well now and competing against teams that are playoff teams or at least vying for the playoff. And competing on a equal basis. They've won about half their games in September. So I give him credit for that. I don't think he's done a bad job overall, certainly, and did a very good job last year. That said, there's a new boss coming in. It should be up to David Stearns, who the manager is. He'll have to decide, and whatever he decides, you've got to go with it. I mean, it's his call, and it should be.
Yeah, and he's got a familiar face that'll be hitting free agent markets. So again, that's why people are putting those ties together. All right, John, let's go to our next topic here. We're getting towards the end of the season here. Award season's coming. The AL. We think we know who the Cy Young is, right? We believe it's Gerrit Cole, Yankees ace, had a phenomenal season. I want to ask you about that. Should he be unanimous Cy Young? And Shohei Ohtani, should he be the MVP? And we'll talk a little bit more about his free agency in a sec.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Cole at this point is the unanimous winner. I can't imagine that he wouldn't be. I know he's got a start to go, but I can't imagine him undoing everything he's done this year. He's been incredible. He's first in just about every important category, including innings pitched and ERA. I mean, if you combine innings pitched and ERA and you're first in both, I can't imagine that you would lose the Cy Young at all. And he is 4 behind in strikeouts to Pablo Lopez. So good job by Pablo Lopez being ahead in the strikeouts, but Cole's ahead in just about everything else, including whip. So should be the unanimous winner. Of course, we've seen some quirky votes in the past, so can't guarantee it. If he gets 29 votes, don't go screaming that the writers are all idiots. No, only one writer is an idiot if that happens.
Okay, and then Shohei Ohtani, should he be your AL MVP?
You know, I still think so. I called it at the All-Star game. Not that I knew anything. I mean, and the guy has been amazing. It's a historic season. Once again, this is the 3rd time he's doing this now. And, you know, I'm of a mind that I do weigh in whether guys contributing to a playoff team or at least a contender. And I'm not giving the Angels credit that they tried. They didn't contend ultimately. And I get it if somebody wants to tell me Corey Seager is the MVP or maybe even Julio Rodriguez, who was incredible in the second half. But and Seager's having a historic season as well. His slugging percentage is right up there with A-Rod as the greatest ever for a shortstop, and he's good defensively. And that team is certainly a contender and has a good chance to be in the playoffs semi and also having a very good year for Texas. But to me, Ohtani's still unbelievable that he's a great pitcher and an amazing slugger. And this year, equal to Seager offensively. They've been the 2 best offensive players in the league, and they're about tied. And you got one guy who's a good defensive shortstop and the other guy who's one of the best pitchers in the league. And I still got to go with Ohtani. And, you know, I'm fairly old school, certainly old. And if I'm saying Ohtani, I think he's almost certainly going to win. But I get it if somebody picks Seager. I don't get it if anybody picks against Cole, but I get it if somebody picks Seager. He did contribute. And MVP is about, you know, winning ultimately in my mind. Right. So I get that. So I think Ohtani wins.
So with Ohtani, it's fascinating once again that he's most likely going to win the MVP again. And he ended his season short. Obviously got the Tommy John surgery just performed on him. So there's a big question mark. Obviously, we talked so much this year about Ohtani's upcoming free agency and how historic could potentially be the contract that he gets. You know, he's not going to be a pitcher next year, obviously, John, but the hope is that he'll be a 2-way player again in 2025. For his free agent market, how is this going to affect him that he's got his Tommy John surgery done now and he's just going to be a DH? Like, are there teams that are going to be turned off by the fact that you're only getting a DH for how much money you're spending for 2024, and then in 2025, you're hoping he can return to form as that 2-way star?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say turned off. I mean, I would say it certainly affects his market, and there are going to be teams that really wanted to get the combination pitcher hitter, which we've never seen before.
Right.
And he will be that starting in 2020, sometime in 2025. We do believe, according to the doctor, Neil Elatraj, who's a very fine surgeon. So just the thought that he will be a pitcher again adds markedly to his value. And I think there's a belief that he will be a pitcher again as well. And I mean, you know, in terms of Cachet, nobody comes close. I was out there a month ago. It is amazing. People just want to see him, even as a DH, where you're only going to bat. You're not seeing him in the field. And then when he cleaned out his locker and he came back, all the fans still came out just to see him, and he wasn't doing anything at that point. So he's got a cachet value, a marketing value beyond anybody else. I do believe he will be a pitcher again at some point. This is the second major surgery on his elbow. So, we'll see if he's still the same pitcher, but it's amazing. Even if he's just a good pitcher, it's amazing. And that's why I still think he's going to get the $500 million or very close to it. It does change the market. And, I wrote about the Dodgers, a team that I saw as the favorite because they are the most consistent winner. They're geographically desirable, the weather. They do have the money to do it. I get it. But that's a team with so many pitching questions, and give them credit for winning, again, the 10th division title in 11 years with all their many pitching issues that they have. Obviously, Urias now gone from the team. Kershaw will be a free agent. You've got May, Gonsolin still out. It's amazing what they've done. But right now, from what I understand, their focus will be on pitching. They're still going to go for Ohtani, but we'll see if they are still the favorite that they were anointed by me and others. And that will affect with other teams. It may not affect like a team, the Mariners, which has great pitching and needs hitting. Maybe they like the idea that he's going to be a little bit less money and he'll be such a great hitter and help their lineup. And they went big for him last time. And, you hear the Boston's got some connection. He likes playing there apparently. So we shall see. I still believe he's going to get the $500 million, but it does affect the market that he's not unable to pitch next year.
Yeah, again, another fascinating development. He arguably is going to be the best hitter in this free agent market. Obviously, you got Cody Bellinger as well, but it will be interesting to see what team is willing to say, we're going to pay him all this money. We're only getting the DH for the first year, and then hopefully get that two-way player in that 2025 year. Again, another interesting development there. Jon, real quick, disappointing team of the week, our last thing, we're bringing it home. I got to ask you about this. I don't know if you saw this. Miguel Cabrera obviously doing his retirement ceremony. Yeah. He's going to all these ballparks, visiting for the last time before he goes off into the sunset. The Oakland Athletics last night gifted him a bottle of wine, and it's going around on social media. People are doing a little bit of research because we saw the photo of the bottle of wine. Jon, you can get this bottle of wine for a cool $90 at any one of your local liquor stores. What are we doing here?
Well, I'm not a sommelier or any kind of wine expert, but we know what $90 is, and basically it's nothing for Miguel Cabrera. And how little thought is this? This sounds like something I pick up on the way to Rosh Hashanah with my cousin in 5 minutes. The Yankees put a great thought into what they were going to give him. It's not just the money, it's the effort, but the Oakland A's, what a disgraceful season. And now they're going to be rewarded by being able to move to Las Vegas. I get it if they're not doing well in Oakland, but I don't see why that ownership should be rewarded with a franchise that's value that's going to go up by, hundreds of millions of dollars for no good, leaving your home area that you've been there for decades. And going somewhere else for your own benefit should not get you hundreds of millions. And particularly with the behavior that we've seen from this guy who owns the A's, who shall go nameless, just disgraceful. The meals that we saw that they gave the minor leaguers, I thought that was worse. Miguel Cabrera obviously doesn't need a bottle of wine or anything else, but the Oakland A's it's just a sad organization. And I would say from the top down, but it's mostly just the top. So I don't want to impugn everybody else. No. It's the top, and it's pathetic. And, I saw other teams with bad records this year, but this week, but thank you for pointing out the gift to Miguel Cabrera, such as it was, and that earns them the disappointing team of the week, and they may be the leader in the clubhouse. At some point, they're so bad that they're not even disappointing, right? I gave it to the Padres several times, and maybe the Cardinals, the White Sox, the Mets, the Yankees, teams that at least had expectations and were trying. Not anything against the players, because the players certainly were trying with the A's, but the ownership was not trying. They weren't trying on the field, and they weren't trying with this gift. So congratulations. I don't know if they'll see this, but if you do, congratulations. we'll send you a bottle of wine even cheaper if you do.
Jon, you are the man. I appreciate you as always for going around the bases with us and covering all the top stories. Thank you as always, man.
All right, Ryan, good talking to you.